And here on DawgNation Daily, as promised, coming up in just a moment, we will discuss what went wrong for Georgia in the Sugar Bowl with a guy who was very outspoken about it all. The former great running back at the University of Georgia, Tim Worley, who was a first-round draft pick in the NFL, and a guy that thrilled Georgia fans for many years. In fact, Mr. Worley is good enough to join us here on DawgNation Daily right now. Tim, thank you so much for your time on the program here today. We really appreciate you being with us. I know you've gotten a lot of attention this week, but thank you so much for taking some time to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for having me on, buddy.
Well, I know a lot of people have reacted, and I'm sure the feedback that you've gotten has been very strong. A lot of folks really glad to hear you step up and say the things you said about Georgia's Sugar Bowl performance. But for the small number of people in our audience who may not be aware of what you had to say, would you mind just sort of recapping what you thought went wrong for Georgia in the Sugar Bowl?
Well, basically, me and my wife, we were watching the game, and we just, of course, I was disappointed. And I got to thinking, we discussed some things, and I felt like I needed to write a blog post because, number one, I'm a University of Georgia alumni. And I was a part of that team and that system and a part of Tailback U. And I laid some tracks there, man. And I worked hard to do it. So, I'm coming from a place of commitment. We can call it old school or whatever, but I was committed, okay? And I just felt like the Sugar Bowl game, I felt like the players and the coaches kind of dismissed it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because, why? Because they did not get a bid for the playoffs. And my thing is, and I want you guys to understand something. I love the University of Georgia. I'm still committed to the University of Georgia. The University of Georgia did so much for me and gave me so many chances. That's why I'm sharing my heart, and this is coming from a place of love. Because I know what it's like. I know what complacency swept up under the rug looks like in the long run. It comes back and bite you in the rear end. So all you got to do is Google me and look at my story.
Sure.
And I'm just in a place, Brandon, where I don't want to see these young athletes or this young generation today. It's not just the athletes, but we're talking about the University of Georgia now. I cannot sit back and watch these young people destroy their lives through apathy and complacency like nothing doesn't matter.
I think the thing that you wrote that I probably agree with the most strongly, I know a lot of people agree with, a lot of what you had to say, but if you want to go back and look at those Saturday night tweets, and you've referenced this before, the dissatisfaction not making the college football playoff, to tweet out what a lot of these Georgia players tweeted, for many fans, that's going to be now an extra obligation to go out and prove in the Sugar Bowl that Georgia truly belong. But to some people, there seemed to be a disconnect between the, what was said on social media and what was proven on the field. And you called that a leadership failure. And certainly it does seem to be a disconnect from what we typically have seen from Georgia, where players seem buttoned up and focused on, as Georgia likes to say, keeping the main thing the main thing. In this particular case, that would seem to be a departure from that, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, it is, but, my question is, did you really keep the main thing the main thing? Because if you're going to keep the main thing the main thing, I don't care if you were playing Clark Central High School in Sanford Stadium. You still go out and compete. And see, this is where the disconnect is. A lot of people feel like, well, they didn't play for the national championship. They didn't play in the playoff to get to that point for the national championship. So we don't have to play hard. We don't have to go out committed. But guess what? Guess what you're doing? You're setting the tone for the next season. And sometimes, man, you just can't turn it on. You got to be in that commitment vein to make things happen. And I just felt like the guys just, number one, being on social media and I mean speaking loudly and harsh, toward the bowl committee, saying all these things where you think you should be. You know what? If you would have beat LSU, you probably would have been in the playoffs, but that didn't happen. But anyway, suck it up. Pull your bootstraps up, man. You're playing in the Sugar Bowl, which was a monumental bowl for the University of Georgia for the national championship in 1980. Go out and play ball. The fans come to see you play ball. They didn't come to see you guys lounge around and have a mediocre attitude and a dismissive, apathetic attitude about Texas. And guess what? Guess what, Brandon? They got kicked in the mouth, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a really strong statement, and I know a lot of Georgia fans are right there with you on that. You also mentioned DeAndre Baker, his decision not to play in the Sugar Bowl. You compared that to your own career conclusion, the Gator Bowl, which is still a great game to look back on and remember, a really good Michigan State team, the final game in Coach Vince Dooley's career. You said that, you went out there and just like a lot of these other draft picks, like Andre Rison and Tony Mandrich did, and played in that game, and critical of DeAndre Baker for not making the same decision. I guess what some people are going to say as a way of playing devil's advocate here is that in this new era of college football that we live in, that's a choice that's available to Baker. It's a choice that other draft picks have made, and that when DeAndre Baker's got those millions of dollars on the line, that it's a reasonable expectation that he might not play in a game where it's not a college football playoff game. That this is just kind of the new era of college football. How would you respond to that?
Well, number one, I never mentioned DeAndre Baker. That was the media's thing. I never mentioned anybody's name. But things get turned around. But, my hat goes off to DeAndre Baker. I'm not backtracking or anything because he did what he had to do. But all I'm talking about, man, is the commitment, okay? You're committed because I do feel like when these guys, and it's not just Mr. Baker, when these guys pull away and say, hey, I'm not going to play in the bowl game because I got to protect my stock, okay, I understand that. But guess what, man? You made a commitment when you signed that contract to come play football at the University of Georgia. I can see these guys backing away from the East-West Shrine, from the North-South game, some of these different bowl games that they get invited to. But when you're playing and you go to it, you get invited to a bowl like the Sugar Bowl, Gator Bowl, or Cotton Bowl, or whatever it is, that's still a part of that season, okay? And listen to this, Brandon. See, now we're in a time where bowl games count statistically for the players. Back when I was playing, those bowl game stats did not add to your regular season stats. So to me, that's an incentive. And you do what you got to do. Listen, I came out of college my junior year, my redshirt junior year, number one, because I blew my knee out my sophomore year, okay? Didn't think I was going to make it back, but I did make it back 100%. I was predicted for sure the top 10 in the first round. That's the only reason I came out. And I'm not knocking Mr. Baker at all. God bless him, and I hope he make all the money in the world and take it to the next level. But listen, man, as long as you're a student athlete at that university, we play the last game until our career is over there. That's just me. You call it old school, but I just call it commitment.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly a strong statement. You wrote about in your piece about how the Sugar Bowl mattered, and maybe the Georgia players didn't play like it mattered to them. How does Georgia bounce back from this? Where does Georgia go from here, and how do they regroup after in your estimation not living up to their billing there in that game in New Orleans on Tuesday night?
Well, number one, I'm a true believer that sometimes you got to get confronted, and you got to get, and I'm going to say this, you got to get pissed off before you can move forward. The truth will set you free. But, there's a lot of pain in that truth. Now, here's two things that can happen, Brandon. You can either accept the truth, be offended, and move forward and make changes, or you can be offended and continue in your own way. Now, let me tell you something. When I fell out of school after I blew my knee out when I stopped going to class, and I got to tell this story, Brandon, if we have time.
Please.
I fell out of school, and I had an opportunity to go to a junior college in Oklahoma in order to get my grades back up and to come back to the University of Georgia. Okay, now listen, I could have got offended. And there was an article in the paper that I read that Coach Dooley said that we were going to move on, because we don't know if Tim's going to be here. You know what? I could have got offended at that. But you know what I did? I sucked it up, and he was right. And he showed me what the big team little me meant. They were going to move on without me because they had to. But you know what? It gave me strength. It gave me fuel to dig in and commit myself not only on the field but off the field in the classrooms too. And that gave me that, it just gave me that drive. And when I came back, man, we all know what happened in the 1988 season. But
Sure.
That was that commitment there, man. But I do think, Brandon, the University of Georgia will bounce back. And all I can say, here's the challenge. What are you going to do in this confrontation? And the reason I'm confronting because it's from a place of love. I've seen so much apathy. I've seen so not just the University of Georgia, but from across the board, there's an apathy in the atmosphere. There's a dishonor and a disrespect, a casual approach about things. And my thing is, I think the mystery is gone. There's no mystery to next level anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. You mentioned in your UGA Wire piece that you're a leadership development consultant. Obviously, we hear the passion with which you speak. Tell us a little bit more about your role as a leadership development consultant and kind of the stuff that you are doing these days.
Well, number one, Brandon, thank you. My business is Worley Global Enterprises. We're a communications consultant firm, and my wife is DeeDee Worley, the former All-American gymnast at Alabama. So we kind of bring what we know and our experiences, as athletes and what it took to be that great high-level athlete, and we're bringing it into the business world now. And one of the things that I've learned through my failures, my victories, but more my failures, is just, I know what the signs look like. I know what apathy does. I know what entitlement does. And those things almost destroyed my life, okay? And so I have a chance today, not only with NCAA schools and professional athletes, but also in the corporate world, to come in and do the leadership training and speaking, because it all transferred to the corporate world too, okay? But I learned these things through experience, through my failures, man. And I just have, and let me say this, Brandon, I have a hatred I have a hatred for young men and women, just destroying their lives, because we believe that how you do one thing is how you do everything. That apathy and that complacency and that casual approach, okay, that will seep into everything in your life that you desire to do. And eventually it will bite you in the rear end.
Well, Tim, I will say this. I remember your career at Georgia. It was a thrill to watch you play then. It's an honor to speak to you now. I know I speak on behalf of a lot of Georgia fans when I say thank you so much for your passion for the school, for the program, for these young men. Thank you for wanting to see the best for them in their lives to come. And I think a lot of people also agree with you that Georgia will turn the corner from this, that the future will be better than what Tuesday night was. But obviously you speak on behalf of a lot of fans who didn't like what they saw. And I know they're grateful to have you out there setting the example you're setting right now. So thanks for coming on DawgNation Daily and sharing some of this with us. For folks who want to find you on social media, how can they learn more about some of the things that you are doing with your consultancy and some of your business stuff?
Okay, my website is WorleyGlobalEnterprises.com. My Twitter handle is @WorleyGlobalBiz. My Instagram handle is @WorleyGlobalEnterprises. And my Facebook is Worley Global Enterprises. Hey, Brandon, can I say one thing before we leave?
By all means, sir.
Okay. I want to just acknowledge our fans. It's not what I think or what I just know for a fact. We have the largest traveling fan base in the country. Georgia Bulldog fans travel very well, and they support their team. And I just want to say thank you to the fans. They're committed. The fans are committed. And so we want the players and all the coaches and everybody else to be committed. I don't care what bowl game we're playing in. And I just want to say thank you to our Bulldog Nation. And number two, thank you I want to say thank you to the University of Georgia that gave me an opportunity back in the 80s. I had 2 or 3 chances at the University of Georgia, and they gave me the best opportunity to maximize my potential and my talent as an athlete there. And I love the University of Georgia. I love the football program, and I want to see these guys do great. And you know what? I still see these guys playing and contending for the national championship next season. It's just whatever you're going to do with the confrontation that you've been hit with.
Well, I tell you, this is such a passionate conversation, and I just really appreciate you sharing so openly and honestly with us here today. And we look forward to enjoying some of the same things you just predict right there. And it'd be great to have you back on the program again sometime. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Brandon. God bless.
God bless you as well, sir. That's Tim Worley, the great former Georgia running back, and what a conversation from a guy that you can tell bleeds red and black, and you can tell that some people agree with everything that Worley says there. Some people agree with part of what Worley says there. But the one thing that nobody can deny is that guy wants what he views as best for the University of Georgia. And when he sees a uniform that he loves, that G on the side of the helmet, that red and silver breeches, when he sees that on the big-time national stage, he wants to see that team playing at its best. and really no one can fault him for that. And certainly, appreciative of him for speaking out about what he thinks is right, what he thinks is wrong, and what he didn't like about the game on Tuesday night. A lot of Georgia fans really glad to have him out there doing just that. By the way, you can read the full text of what Worley wrote originally over at UGA Wire. We appreciate Tim Worley being with us on the program here today.